Iowa, the lady who came out with the poll that said Iowa was going to go to Kamala Harris because women in Iowa are overwhelmed with the issue of abortion, and
Yeah.
she's now been thoroughly discredited.
Yeah, listen, I'm not done with her. Okay, so I'm going to go on every show that'll hear it, and I'm going to tell them the story. I don't know how much time I got to do this. Stop me if I ramble on. But listen, first of all, I used to respect Ann Selzer a great deal, probably more than anybody else in this industry. It is hard to be a woman in this industry, especially when she started. It is a true boys club, and it's a boys club in both the sense that women, there aren't many women pollsters. Kellyanne was one of the very few women pollsters, and she'll tell you she's a Republican pollster, that this is a boys club. It's not a women's game. Right. But secondly, so I respected her for that. And then secondly, it's a true boys club in the sense that if you're not invited to this club, they don't want you. Look what they did to me. Look what they have done to me, Dave, over the years. Maligned me and smeared me. So that's what they'll do if they think that you're a threat to them and that you're not part of their clique, especially if you outperform them. They're going to do that stuff. So I always respected Ann that she was able to break through that. Now, let's get to it. 2020. Before the Democratic caucus, Ann Selzer did the poll for the Des Moines Register, as she always does. Joe Biden was in 4th place. Pete Buttigieg was in 2nd place. Bernie Sanders was in 1st place. Doesn't really matter who's in 3rd because they're not relevant to this story. Everybody's waiting. It's a highly anticipated poll. And CNN announces that they're not going to release it. And there was a problem with data collection. I found out, it's a source, I got the results of the poll, and I found out that that was the story that was being told publicly was a lie. The story was that Pete Buttigieg's name was cut off of one of the interviews. The woman had her Zoom. So when she was reading the responses to people, Pete Buttigieg's name was cut off. The truth is that's a lie, and I was told it was a lie. Mike Cernovich, by the way, also got the results. He knew the story too. So Mike could back me up on this, I'm sure. But the bottom line is Pete Buttigieg was happy to be the foil because he thought he was going to surge at the last minute and actually beat Bernie, and he didn't want that poll out. The real thing was that Joe Biden was in 4th, and the Biden campaign pressured CNN, who then leaned on the Des Moines Register, who then leaned on Ann Selzer, and Ann Selzer agreed to spike the poll using some BS excuse that even left-wing Patrick Murray at Monmouth University agreed with me is not a legitimate excuse to spike a poll. It was very easy to correct, even if that story was true. It was very easy to correct that and move forward, Dave, and they didn't. They spiked it for political reasons. And then we get to 6 months later, we get to the election. Barnes and I are live on What Are the Odds, polling Iowa. I'm showing people with a tiny lightweight plus the raw data, that this is not really competitive. It's Trump +8. She comes out with a tie, showing that this is a tied race and it's a headline and what a horse race. It was a lie. The race was never tied. She was doing it for headlines. And then at the very end, she herded to a Trump +7 so she could save her credibility. That was 2020. Now, fast forward again to this cycle. And I mean, she's all over the place with headline polling. As I'm polling Iowa, it's very consistent. There's no real change. She is doing it for headlines. And then we get to where they're getting ready to push Biden out. And again, sources tell me she's holding on to a poll that shows Trump is up 19 points in Iowa against Joe Biden, or ballpark, just under 20 points. They ignore me. I accuse her of holding the poll. They ignore it. They pretend like they don't have to answer it.
This is like high school gossip stuff that I follow
but it's really bad because she was holding the poll because they were it's like she knew that Democrats were getting ready to push Biden out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, think about it. Understand what I'm saying here. And I've got to be real clear. She must have known that they were going to try to push him out because she held the poll, re-polled a month later, and then had Harris doing better than Biden did in the prior poll, and only released the initial poll I accused them of holding on to when they could use it to advance the narrative that Harris was performing stronger than Joe Biden against Donald Trump.
Do they alter the date on it, or is it known that it's an old poll, but they just release it later?
They pretended like there was no poll, and then when they reported the new poll, they said, and a poll we did a month ago, which we really didn't publish and make public, showed that Biden was doing much worse against Kamala Harris. I mean, it was so dirty how they used, and you don't share a month-old poll like that, even if you did, hold it. You don't do that because it's stale data. It doesn't mean because she polled a month before, it doesn't mean Biden would have came back at the same numbers the next month. So the fact that she did that is like taking a snapshot in time and applying it to what she wanted it to say. Mm-hmm. And then we have what we have here. Look, the people that I speak to tell me that January 6th broke her brain. And I'm not saying she did this on purpose with this Iowa poll last Saturday. I'm saying that as a pollster, if you lose your objectivity, you can find whatever you want in the data and you can convince yourself that I'm right. I don't know in this case how she could have done this because, and I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was just a poor, very poor response bias. But in truth, she goes on Mark Halperin to explain the results, and the explanation didn't make sense. The math didn't work. She said it was all of these new women who cared about abortion. Dave, abortion wasn't even the number one issue in the damn poll. Protecting democracy was. Inflation was at like 7%.
In her own poll.
She's
or
lying.
in okay, so then what do you like? I understand how one can falsify them again. Okay, fine, inflation is the number one concern, and then let's just say abortion is number two. Oh well, if inflation is not a women's issue, so we'll strike it from the poll, and now we'll go ask it again. Women's issues, abortion. I can understand that. What did she do? Did she ignore the results and exaggerate the secondary results, or did she exclude the primary results?
No, I think that she got a high participation from like a Starbucks line in Manhattan instead of the voters of Iowa. Like she probably spoke to too many people in Polk or to the university areas. I don't know unless she showed me the data set. I wouldn't be able to say for sure. But it's obvious that the electorate in Iowa is not Democratic leaning. She had it Democratic leaning electorate. I mean, I think she wanted something to be true. I think she wanted to help advance a narrative, and I think she was willing to do that, hoping it was true. Because I polled all the way until the Sunday before the election. We wrapped up our final interviews on that Sunday. About 10 days before, Republicans just stopped participating in polls at very high rates.
Explain that. That's actually fascinating.
Yeah, I think what happened, I don't know this for sure. We'll have to research this more and find out what happened. But if there is a way, but my running hypothesis is that so many more Republicans voted early this year that when they did vote, they just checked out, and like their interest went down in talking to pollsters. Their interest went down in, even participating in the entire process. They said, I'm done. It's in God's hands now, and I don't want anything else to do with it. Republicans behaviorally are very different than Democrats. It's just true. And then I think the second part of this is, if we were to call back some of those people that Ann talked to, I am willing to bet anything that they will laugh in your face and say, I tricked that loser woman. I guarantee it. They probably lied. A lot of them are probably lying to make Ann look stupid. We come up with this all the time, and there's only it's tough for pollsters to deal with. But I think the combination of the two probably led to a data set that, given her predisposition, which is a never Trump predisposition, she was able to use to convince herself that poll was actually anywhere near the realm of credible or legitimate.